Hey, how you all doing? So let's get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our March workshop, Solo GC, a survival guide. It looks like we have had an amazing turnout, um, and we want to keep this super interactive. So if you have any questions at all, please write in the Q&A section, and we're going to get to them towards the end of the hour. Now, for those who don't know me, I'm Matt Margolis. I'm the head of community here at Law Trades. If you don't know Law Trades, we are a legal tech startup, and we help busy GCs source, interview, and hire from a vetted network of flexible legal talent. And we assist in their journey to build high-performing remote legal teams. Now, without further ado, I'm going to introduce someone who does not need an introduction. Uh, Sterling Miller, who is our host for this workshop. And I think you all will agree he is more than qualified to speak to this topic. Sterling is a three-time VC, a author, a legal guru, and in my mind, one of the biggest legal influencers around. So over to you, Sterling.
Wow, thanks, thanks, Matt. Let's get that guy. He sounds very impressive. So, thanks, thanks for having me. I was very pleased to be asked to do this today and to be here with all of you. I understand there's 100,000 people. No, I'm kidding. Several hundred at least, though, which is amazing to me. So, thank you, everyone, for signing up, for tuning in. And our topic today is the legal department of one or a survival guide. So if you if you don't know me, here's a little bit about my background. I've been doing this for a long time, right? So 30 years as a lawyer, about 25 years in-house. I've published 5 books. I have a new one out showing the value of the legal department. So if you want to help keep my kids in college, please buy that book. That would be fantastic. I also write this blog, 10 Things You Need to Know as In-House Counsel. I have a new one coming out on Thursday. Excited about that. And currently, I actually left the in-house world to go back to a law firm. And I am the CEO and senior counsel at a boutique firm called Hilters Graben. Here, the office here I'm at is in the Dallas area. So there's a plug for the book. What do you know? If you want to buy the book, you can go to the American Bar Association, or apparently it's on Amazon. But those may be returned copies. I don't know for sure. But anyway, there it is. So let's dive in and let's talk about legal department of one. And let's start with, why are we here? What drives people to want to be part of a legal department of one? And I think you can break it down into there's really 2 factors, right? So first, there's the company. So companies are deciding that they need to have their own in-house lawyers. They're ready to move from their outside counsel, whoever that may be. It may be one person, it may be a large firm, whatever it is. They're figuring that, we have enough legal work, we have enough need to have that person brought inside. But they're probably only going to hire one. It's rare that you would see a company want to start off with hiring an entire legal department. That would be unusual, to say the least. So it starts with one. That one person, however, is a unique individual, in my opinion. There's something about them that attracts them to wanting to be a legal department of one, or maybe even just a really small legal department. I think what I'm going to talk about today will apply if you're by yourself, or maybe there's just a couple of you in-house there. But I think these folks, there's something that attracts them about building something from scratch, right? So when you come in and you're the first lawyer, the only lawyer, it's all green grass, and you can build whatever you want, however you want to build it. And that is really attractive to a lot of people. Just getting to do things your way. If you've been part of a legal department, or maybe you've been part of a big law, and there are certain ways and that certain things get done in certain ways, and it all seems rather fixed, and you're probably going, boy, if I was ever in charge, I would do it this way. And when you get that opportunity to be in charge, that's part of the attraction. You get to do it the way that you want to do it, that you think is best, that serves the needs of the client, and also makes the job as interesting as possible for you. you also have to have this little twisted part of your brain where you just love this rocket-like pace because it goes very fast. Every day is different. Every day is a challenge because you are the only lawyer and everything comes to you. Even things that aren't legal are going to come to you. And you probably have realized that by now. If there's any way, shape, or form that they can say, well, this belongs to legal, they're going to shove it over to you so they don't have to worry about it. And now it's potentially your problem. So you have to get used to that and you have to want to do that. And then lastly, and just as legitimately as the other three, is generally when you're a legal department of one, you're joining a startup and you're hoping at some point that maybe they'll go public, maybe there'll be a SPAC, maybe there'll be something, there'll be some reward at the end of the day for all of this work that you're going to do to build this and get this off the ground. So there's a certain type of personality that gets you to the point where you are a legal department of one. Now, before we dive into some of the things that I think you need to know if you're either interested in being a legal department of one, or maybe you're in the middle of it and I can help you a little bit, is what I'm going to tell you are things that worked for me. And one of the things that I always did whenever anyone would come and speak to our legal department or speak to the companies that I was engaged in, or if I attended a webinar like this, I always had a little bit of skepticism, right? Don't buy everything anyone tells you as gospel. I'm just a just a regular guy. I don't have any special powers. Just telling you things that work for me. But what you have to do for yourself is figure out what works for you. What are the best things for you? What works in your context? And not everything that I tell you is going to work exactly like I say. You may have to adapt it, and that's okay. But just keep that in the back of your head as you're listening to what I say is, I've got to figure out what's going to work for me and what's going to be best for my situation and our company. Okay, so I've decided to break all of this down into what are your gets. And if you've ever negotiated contracts, one of the terms that the business people like to use is our gives and gets. Gets are the things that we need, gives are the things that we're going to give to the other side. So taking this from our side, so all of you assembled here, these are the things that you need to get in order to survive as a legal department of one. So first and foremost, as you join and create this legal department of one, get everything in writing. And what I mean by that is before you accept the role, part of your job is to clarify exactly what your role will be. Are you expected to be part of the executive team? Like, are you going to be an advisor to the CEO and to the board? Or are you just going to be someone who's doing contracts, right? So you need to kind of figure out what your role is going to be, and you get that locked down. It's likely to be a combination, right? It's going to be different duties and different expectations, and you want to get all that nailed down before you accept. And any promises that you're made around bonuses, around salary, around stock, around equity, whatever the case may be, get it all in writing, because as you know, if you don't have it in writing, it doesn't really exist. So it's really important to make sure that you get that. If you can't get it from the company, then go ahead and document it back to them, with your own email. Here's my understanding of what our agreement is, right? So at least there's something that you can point to, because I've seen this too many times where down the road, everybody kind of forgets what the deal was. And if it's not in writing, again, it didn't really happen. So number one, your first get is to get it in writing. Number two, you're going to have to get comfortable. And what I mean by that is you're going to have to be comfortable with flying kind of by the seat of your pants, right? You're going to make legal decisions without a lot of information, and you're going to become kind of the ultimate do-it-all generalist, what I like to call kind of a Swiss Army knife. You're not really going to have time to go to outside counsel, if that's even an option. You may not have the budget for it. And you're probably not going to be able to spend hours researching different legal issues, especially if you've come from a law firm. You're going to notice right away there's a huge difference
I could definitely speak to this issue while Sterling is working through some of the technical issues. Is I was a solo GC. I think this is something that we all deal with, and it's having to, well, especially being a generalist, but having to fly the seat of your pants. So uh, having limited time, limited resources, you get a message maybe from some aspect of your business, and having to get to that person within 24 hours. You don't have Westlaw potentially, you don't have any of those resources. So it's something, again, you have to get comfortable with, and it's not terrible. Sterling, I think I'll
Yeah.
leave it back to you on
Hey,
that front.
hey, sorry about that. I'm not sure what happened. It just goes to show you never know what to expect when you do
Exactly.
these things live. So anyway, that was a great fill in, Matt. I could hear you. I was nodding along, so I was actually going to just listen. I was learning as we go. So you're not going to have outside counsel, right? And you're going to have to make a lot of decisions with less than perfect information, and you have to be comfortable with that. If that's not what you want, if you like the safety of having lots of time to do the research, lots of time to edit, lots of other people to kind of look over your work and back you up, then, being a solo or part of a small legal department is probably not the right decision. When it comes to compensation, a lot of the times the promise is the payoff in the end. And the smaller companies are going to say, well, here's the salary because we're a startup. But, look, if things turn out the way that we want them to in a few years, this could really pay off. And you have to decide, am I comfortable with that risk? Can I live with, what this offer is today with the hope that there's going to be a bigger payoff down the road? So if you can, great. If not, again, it may not be the situation that you want to take advantage of. And then lastly, when it comes to risk, you're going to have to get comfortable probably with taking a lot more risk than you ever have in your life. And lawyers aren't good with that. Lawyers generally tend to be risk adverse. That's okay. It's part of our DNA. But when you find yourself with a startup company in a solo role, just the need to get things done, the fact that the company probably doesn't have the the largest amount of commercial leverage that anyone's ever going to see, you're going to have to accept some things and do some things. And maybe just because the business's appetite for risk is so much greater than maybe if you're at a well-established large company, you're just going to have to get comfortable with going, okay, well, legal doesn't run the business does. And as long as the right people are making the decisions about the risk, then we're going to go ahead and do it and do our best with whatever that case may be. And one of the things that I have found incredibly valuable when you're trying to do things consistently, quickly, is develop a checklist. And here is a checklist that I developed a long time ago. This is actually a copy of it that I had created to go through and analyze risk. And you're all going to get a copy of this presentation, I believe, either through a recording or I'll make it available. I'll send it to Matt and Hannah to distribute. But this is also in my book. There's probably a copy of this in one of my blogs as well. But this was simply a way for me to quickly and consistently look through issues as they came across my desk and try to figure out, what type of risk is this? Is this something that I don't have to spend a lot of time on, or is this something that we're going to have to make time to really think through? And I'm not going to read you all of these because I already know that you've gone through this list here in the last couple minutes and you've been reading these yourself. So I'm going to pick out just a couple that I think are really important. So the first one is the second bullet, which is, what's the business trying to accomplish? Make sure you understand really what the business wants to do and how does the risks that they want to take line up with what they're trying to accomplish. And that goes into the next bullet, which is this something that's going to create value, or is this something that's going to destroy value? And if you ask me what the mission statement of the legal department is, that's it. We maximize value creation and we minimize value destruction. And everything that you do, you can filter through one of those lenses, and that should tell you, hey, I want to spend a lot of time on creating value, and I certainly want to spend enough time to minimize destruction. But value creation is more important, and that's really where the bulk of my effort wants to go. But you want to look at the things that are coming across your desk and figure out, where does it fit in there. You always want to look at kind of this point in the middle, like, well, even though this may be perfectly legal, so to speak, there's not a regulation against it, there's not a prohibition in the contract. Should we do it? And if we do it, what happens if it becomes public? Is this something that's going to damage the reputation of the company? It's going to hurt the value of the company, not because it was illegal, just because it was a stupid idea. And one of the best things that the lawyers can do, especially as a legal department of one, is to kind of be that backstop for, hey, wait a minute, time out. I love where your head's at, C-suite, but let's back up a second and think through a couple things that we really need to weigh before we go forward. And a checklist like this, and there are other things on here, really, really, really can help you figure out, what are the risks? Who are the right people to involve? And is this something that, we really, really need to spend more time on? Or can we just kind of go, yeah, fine, great, move on and get on with it? So having that checklist, you can have this checklist. You can create your own. I just think checklists are really, really helpful and an underrated tool. You're going to have to get scrappy. So after you get comfortable, after you get it in writing, you're going to have to understand that, being this legal department of one means you're going to have to most likely be very frugal, unless you're the only lawyer at Google and you have money, just dropping out in bags. You're going to have to learn how to make those dollars stretch, because money's going to be at a premium. And there's going to be a lot of pressure, not only on legal. So you're not unique, but on all parts of the company, especially at the smaller companies, to just limit expenses generally. You're trying to get the profitability most likely, or stay there if you've managed to do that. And you may have no budget or a very small budget for outside counsel. So how do you make up for that, right? You can't go to, maybe you came from a large legal department, you came from a large firm. The ability of you to go back to mega firm is probably unlikely, right? They're just too expensive. So you have to find some substitutes. And what are those? Well, you can find a boutique law firm, something that's kind of small or is broken away. And one of the things that we had done at some of the smaller legal departments that I was in charge of, we identified solo practitioners, people who had left big law just to set their own, this is me, I'm working out of my house type of law firm, right? One person, but their ability to work with us, their ability to meet our financial needs, their ability to bring all of the same experience, all of the same quality, all the same knowledge to bear, but just at a price point we could afford, was a tremendous value. So looking and trying to find those hidden gems within law firms of solo practitioners, that's one way you can stretch your dollar. There are an amazing amount of free CLEs, webinars, seminars, boot camps. Big Law loves to put these on. They really don't pay attention to they pay attention to who attends. They don't care because they're making it available basically to everyone, not just their clients. If you can find that, take advantage of it. It's free. You're going to get a lot of great information. You're probably going to get some great resources. And it's all there just for the taking. I'm going to talk about building your own free law library here in just a second. And of course, depending on what area of the law or what area of business your company's involved in, you can find specialized blogs. You can find blogs about SEC compliance, about contracting, about HR issues, about general in-house issues. Spend some time and try to find a handful of resources that you can repeatedly go back to, that don't cost really anything, if anything at all, but can give you quick answers and quick advice when you need it. So that scrappiness is you're going to take that to an entirely new level. If you read any of my blogs, if you've read any of my books, number one on my list is always, you have to know the business. So you have to get up to speed on the business. This is absolutely critical, especially when you're a legal department of one or just a couple of people, because you can't really take a play off, as they say in football, right? You're on all the time, and the only way you can be on all the time is to really have a good understanding of how the company operates, and most importantly, how it makes money. Because the company's going to expect you to know these things as they're bringing you problems. They're going to want to see you filter them, based on your knowledge of how the company operates and what the company's business model is. So, what do? First, read everything you can about your company. It can be things that are produced by the company. So talk to the marketing people, talk to the salespeople, get copies of, whatever the materials that are out there. Go to the website. Company websites are an incredible source of information. And if you haven't yet spent time on your company's website and just looked at the different resources that are available to potential customers, it could be YouTube videos, it could be written materials, you're missing out on a wealth of information. So that's really one of the first places that I would start. I would get product demos. I was always surprised at people who worked in legal departments that I was part of who had never seen the products that we sold in operation. I've yet to find a sales team or a marketing team or any team within the company that wouldn't find a way to give you a demonstration of what the products are and how they work. And once you see them in action, it really helps your ability to provide legal advice, or even beyond legal advice, being that strategic partner that the business is probably looking for. Ask a lot of questions. I was always never bashful about asking questions, though. One of the tricks that I did, if I was in a meeting and I didn't understand a lot of the things that they were talking about, which was frequently, because I'm only so smart, I would write things down to ask. And then after the meeting, I would go find the person who was talking about it, or I'd find someone in finance and I'd go, can you explain this to me? I really didn't quite understand what was going on. Because what you don't want to do, it's okay to ask a few questions during a meeting, like, hey, I don't quite understand what that means. But if you're doing that, every 2 minutes, they're going to get pretty annoyed with you. So it starts off as being, oh, here's someone who's curious about the business, but it could quickly turn into, oh my God, please shut up, Sterling. Just don't ask another question. So you got to pick your spots. But asking questions is certainly something that you want to do. Making friends within the business, people that you can talk to about different things. I always made friends with people in finance, because finance in most companies, once you get past the CEO, finance probably has the most influence in most of the companies that I have ever been exposed to, certainly the CFO. And if they view you as a partner, if they view you as someone that they like, that they want to work with, that's going to make your life much easier, both in terms of the legal advice, but also in terms of just running the department, getting budget, getting resources. So seek those people out. The more friends, the better. And then you're going to have to understand some basics about business finance. Now, you don't need to be an MBA. I certainly am not an MBA, but I have ultimately learned how to read, a balance sheet, a P&L, a cash flow statement, those basic things. And if you don't know how to do that, I have some links put throughout this presentation, and I have some resources on the last slide. But the best place to go, when I learned how to read financial statements, I went to YouTube. And there's an incredible amount of finance professors from brand name universities all over the world who are teaching introductory finance courses that are recorded, and you can watch them for free on YouTube. And that's how I learned it. I didn't really take any finance courses in college, and they told me there'd be no math. When I got to law school, they lied. So I had to learn it. And what was an easy way to learn it was just to watch someone, basically sit in on a class. So there are ways that you're gonna have to figure out how to get up to speed on the business. Get practical law. I tout practical law almost every chance I get in my blog, and I have for years. I have found this to be single-handedly the best resource for in-house lawyers, certainly the best resource if you're a small legal department, a legal department of one. There's an incredible amount of useful and practical content on there. I will caution you with saying that I do write articles for Thomson Reuters, and some of those articles are about practical law. So, but I wouldn't tell you this if I didn't really believe it. I think it's how they found me, because I was always touting practical law. The problem with practical law is this: it's awesome, but it is expensive. So how do you squeeze Ebenezer Scrooge in finance to let you buy practical law? Well, if you can't talk them into it, okay, I understand. There are some alternatives out there. LexisNexis, maybe that's a service that you have. They have something called Practical Guidance. Bloomberg Law has a competing service. They haven't given it a name yet. I don't know why, but it has basically the same types of materials as Practical Law. You may be able to find through those different sources something that's less expensive, or something that you already have access to for some reason. But if you can't spend those types of dollars, there are some places you can go where it's relatively inexpensive or free. And all of these are links to different content sources that I actually use. I use all of these in different ways. Lexology is a newsfeed service. Basically, all those client alerts that you get from Big Law, they kind of gather those up together. It's incredibly useful. It's completely free. There's a lot of great stuff in there. You can slice and dice it however you want. They do have some paid versions, Lexology Pro and Getting the Deal Through. But these other sources, Justia, the Harvard Guide to Free Legal Resources, Google Scholar, etc. These are all free. Or things like Business in a Box. It's a dopey name, I know, but for $200, it has a huge amount of templates and checklists and forms that are really actually pretty well done. They're not as well done as Practical Law, but they're pretty good. And again, for $200, they can really help you and get you started in a way that, if you can't afford a resource like Practical Law. I put YouTube here, of course, because there's lots of great content on YouTube. So don't scoff. Just if you have something that you need, YouTube is my IT support. We do have IT support at the firm, but a lot of times it takes them a while to get back to me. If I need to find something, a lot of times the first place I'll look is, has anyone fixed this problem on YouTube? And most likely they have. So that's a great resource as well. You got to get the basics right. So when you're starting as a solo lawyer, you're working day to day as a solo in-house lawyer or small legal team, there's a lot to fix, and you can't fix it all at once, right? So you got to focus. You got to figure out what's the most important. And these are the things that, in my experience, are the most important, right? So the basic corporate documents. If you've joined a company that's a startup, odds are these documents were probably prepared by the founders, especially if it's an LLC. They're probably not very good, and it's a real opportunity for you to come in and add some value. The cap table, human resources policies. You read all the time about Silicon Valley companies that have had issues around human resources issues. A lot of that is because when they started out, they put practically zero effort into policies, into procedures. And as they grew and mushroomed, that never caught up. So as the in-house lawyer, to the extent you can focus and spend time on trying to get that part right, it doesn't necessarily seem like it's going to pay off in the beginning, but it will pay off in the end as the company grows and the employee base grows and the issues become way more complicated, way more quickly. If you can get on top of data privacy and data security issues, we all know how important that is. A lot of times the crown jewels of smaller companies all lies in the data. So protecting that data and then making sure, this is true at small companies and big companies, once there's data in the systems, everybody in the company thinks the data is free to do whatever they want with. And we all know that it's not. So what are the policies? What are the procedures? How can you use the data that's in the possession of the company and do it in a way that's compliant with the privacy policy, it's compliant with the law, and most importantly, is compliant with consumer or your customers' expectations. And then lastly, protecting the intellectual property of the company. The trademarks are probably number one. Maybe you're going to have some patents, right? Copyrights, trade secrets, a whole another place. So do you have the right agreements in place? Are you taking care of those things? So if you can't do everything, but if you can make your to-do list smaller and focus on a handful of these, you're going to get a lot of value right out of the box just by focusing on the right things. So get the basics right. Get a network, right? It's hard to be a department of one, to be a small legal department, but you're not alone. And one of the things that you can do is start to focus on building a network of lawyers who are similarly situated. There are lots of lawyers. There are probably a lot of lawyers on this session here today that are legal departments of one who would love to connect and would love to share and bounce ideas, have someone they could talk to, someone that they could ask, does anyone have a form to do this? You can expand your legal department without adding headcount by just developing a network. You can join organizations like ACC or the American Bar Association that have groups that are dedicated to this. In a lot of cities, I know here in Dallas, there are several organizations that are comprised just of general counsel or lawyers from in-house groups. And they have a very active message board. You can ask for referrals. You can ask all kinds of questions. And everyone is generally very willing to help and share what they have. And if you have the inclination, you can create your own. You can just start reaching out to people and go, I want to start a group of in-house lawyers in this area or that focus on this, and see how many people would like to join you. My guess is you will find more than a handful and maybe a lot of people want to be part of that network, because they're all going to get value. They're all going to give something, but they're all going to get something out of it. And if you can create a network like this, you can instantly see that you have now expanded your legal department, quote unquote, without really any cost. There's some time investment, but you now have a lot more people that you can talk to. You have a lot more people who can help you. No, they're not going to do your legal work, but they can help make your work easier and help you find things that you need to get your job done, and especially share resources and ideas. So getting that network in place, building that network out is really, really critical. And you got to get good at delegation and prioritization. There's the word, prioritizing. And it took me a while, to learn this skill as I was in-house, because I, like a lot of lawyers, think I'm the only person who could do it as well, who could do it good, who could do it really good, really well. So if it's not me, who else can do it? And you have to start to let that go. And what you realize pretty quickly is, even if you worked 24/7, 365, you're never going to be able to get all the work done. You just can't. And you have to figure out points where you're going to just stop for the day, but you also have to figure out what's important. What are the things that really need to get done and what can wait? And there are things that really need to get done, and there are definitely things that can wait. And that skill you will start to hone the more that you do it. But if you think back to law school, especially for those who were in the United States and went to law school here, they always give you more than you can read between all of your classes in a night. And you've already started to develop the skill where you figured out, if I read these three things, I'm going to be ready enough for tomorrow, and the rest of it can wait. It's not a great thing to do all the time, but you figured out that you could focus on a few things without having to do everything. It's the same skill set. You're just applying it in a different way. So what's the difference between urgent and important? Important means it's important. Urgent means someone just wants it done now, but it may not be important. So you always want to focus on the things that are important and the things that are going to add value. What's going to add, what's important, and what's going to add the most value. And those are the things where you really want to start to spend your time. One of the things that I learned to create was a to-do list of 3. Now, all the things that I have to do, and I still use this today, there's more than 3 things, but I start each morning with, what are the 3 most important things I want to get done today? And those are the 3 things that I focus on. And if I can get 1, 2, all 3 things done, I have accomplished a lot, because I know those are really important, and I know they're going to add a lot of value. But if I just sit there with a long to-do list, I'm trying to pick things at random, maybe I'll work on something really important, maybe I won't, and I'm really going to just be spending time ticking things off my to-do list, so I feel better about my to-do list. Throw that to the side, pick something pick a few things in the morning that are really important and focus on that. And even if you're the only lawyer, even if you're the only person in the legal department, you can still delegate. Maybe you have an assistant. Maybe there are other people within the business who are willing to help. I've always found the salespeople very willing to help to get contracts done. Sometimes it's not as helpful as they think it is, but sometimes it is. Can I give them some real basics of gathering information for me about the contract? Can I give them a checklist? If you go through this checklist, tell me, what you didn't check, and those are the things I'm going to focus on, right? I give them something that they can use to look through it, and then that can help me get the work done faster because I was able to delegate some of the things that I was going to do to someone else. So you can always you can rely on other people, and I think you'll find that they're more than willing to help if you just ask them. And anytime that you can spend training employees, if you can train them how to write smart, if you can train them on how to do some things that will make your life easier, even though the training part is a distraction, but once you do it, for the most part, it's gonna sit with people, a lot of people, and you're gonna start to reduce the problems and the issues that you're gonna face down the road. So there are ways to delegate, and there are ways to prioritize that maybe you haven't considered yet, even though you're just one person, and there just seems to be so much work on your plate. There are some things that you can do. You have to get thinking about the future. And what I mean by that is you're not always going to be a legal department of one, at least probably not. So what are my opportunities down the road to expand the department? Maybe I'm going to hire a paralegal. Maybe I'm going to hire a lawyer. Maybe I don't have an assistant, but I'm going to have the ability to hire an assistant. Well, you need to start thinking about that now. Now is the time to start keeping notes on the issues that the company is facing. And if I had the chance, if I had the budget, what would I do to expand the department to start to deal with those issues? Keeping track of the money, right? How much money am I spending on two ways? Either I'm spending outside, so I'm paying outside counsel, or I'm paying someone to do this. And if I brought this work in-house, I could do it more cheaply. Why don't we take that money and hire someone else? So that's number one. Number two, and this was always really effective when I would talk to the business, is, we're leaving X thousands of dollars of contracts on the table because we don't have enough people to do the work, and we don't have the budget to go outside. So all these deals just aren't getting done. And here's the value of the deals that aren't getting done. That is an attention grabber, and you will find that the business will start coming and demanding, we need a bigger legal department, or they need a bigger budget. And if you can get the business advocating for you, that is much better than you advocating for you, because everybody expects that from you. What they don't expect is the business to come in and say, we need more lawyers, we need more budget, we're losing money, we're leaving money on the table by not doing this. So it's always about the math, and it's always about presenting a compelling reason for why. And if you have that math to back you up, if you have those reasons, you're much more likely to get the things that you want and things that you need than if you just go, yeah, it'd be really nice to have someone. That's not going to get you very far at the end of the day. If you have to focus on something, get focused on value generation. It's important that you show value, even as a legal department of one, because the business is wondering, are we getting the value of what we thought we were going to get? Keep senior management up to date on what you're doing. Don't expect them to know what's going on unless you tell them. So find a way to share the accomplishments of the legal department, again, even if it's only one, regularly with the business. Focus them on how you're saving them money, how you're generating money, whatever the case may be, but you have to be proactive in showing that. We talked about this risk profile. Figure out how to be Dr. Yes. Nobody likes Dr. No. So no should be the last resort unless it's criminal. If someone's going to get hurt, you should always try to figure out, okay, here's what the business wants to do. What's the best way that we can get there? That's going to make your life a lot easier. And adjust your legal thinking to the risk tolerance of the company. Legal doesn't run the business runs the business. So you want to adjust your mentality to what the risk profile is of the company and make sure that you're doing the things that the company wants you to do. So if the company says, you know what, we know that having an uncapped liability clause is not a great thing, but we don't have the ability to get a cap, so we're just going to live with it and we'll buy some insurance. Fine. Don't continually argue for why you need $1 million cap if you already know the business is going to say, fine, whatever we need to do to get the deal. So adjust your thinking, adjust your mentality, and focus on how you're going to generate that value every day. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about some resources here, and then I'm going to open it up for questions in the last 15 minutes because I understand there may be a few. So here are some resources. The first few are from my blog, Legal Department of One, How to Delegate, Spotting and Managing Risk, How to Show the Value. And then, of course, our friends from Law Trades here can help you embellish your team. And they have a newsletter here. So all these resources are available to you if you would like to check them out. And with that, I'm going to stop. Here's some contact information for me. You feel free to contact me. There's the blog, and you can connect with me on LinkedIn as well. So with that, Matt, I'm going to stop, and I'm happy to take any questions that you might have.
That was awesome. As a former solo GC, that hit me right in the heart, most of what you said. On that, I think we're going to wrap it up. Everybody, thank you so much for coming. Our next event is Thursday the 7th with Christine Ury. We're going to be discussing why legal should take on a lead in sustainability. I just had a chat with Christine, and there's some really fantastic, fascinating insights that she's going to share, so please don't miss it. Also, if you have a few minutes to spare, please click on the networking on the left of your screens, and after we finish, you can meet some of the attendees from today. Now, last thing, if you're interested in joining our community of GCs and legal leaders, please fill in the form of the chat. Again, everyone, thank you so much for your time, and have a great rest of your day.